Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening to the replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly on these calls, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people, you have other things to do. Our standard format is to spend a few minutes talking about the reinstitution of the Iraqi Dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for the potential revaluation of some of these other currencies. A few minutes talking about the program we've put in place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started and talk a little bit about the situation in Iraq. First, by way of disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of the dinar and these other currencies. We're not advocating either the purchase or the sale of these currencies, but as rather substantial currency holders ourselves, we're sharing with you the information that we think is relevant. Of course, the most relevant piece of information for those of us holding currencies is the potential window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. We're in a little bit of a weird place right now, so I've got a rather large window. I still believe there's a possibility we could see a reinstitution in January, but for reasons that I will explain in more detail, this could get pushed all the way to March. There are two primary issues of concern for us today. One is the appointment of the new prime minister in Iraq, and second is final passage of the 2020 budget. So let's start first and talk a little bit about the situation with the prime minister. The parliament is scheduled to vote this week on a new prime minister. The leading candidate right now is a gentleman by the name of Sharif Ali bin al-Hussein. That's a mouthful. He is a moderate Shia. He has repeatedly publicly promised to implement all of the reforms of the protesters. He is well known in Iraq. He is, in fact, the last surviving member of the royal family of Iraq, which most of whom were assassinated in 1958. Now, there is also a final vote scheduled for passage of the budget, which could possibly happen this week, but will probably get pushed into next week. Now, this is where it gets a little bit complicated. If for any reason the budget is postponed because there's no reinstitution, or if they should pass a budget at the 1180 rate, that does not mean that there will be no reinstitution, provided that the government, if it should issue a budget at the old 1180 rate, does not make any expenditures at that rate until they reinstitute. So they theoretically could pass the budget this week or next week, and let's assume that hypothetically that they don't reinstitute their currency for 3 or 4 weeks. Again, as long as they don't make payments at the 1180 rate, it's a pretty simple proposition for them to amend the budget to accommodate the increased reinstituted rate. So we still are in a pretty good place despite a lot that's occurred. Now, there are issues with Iran, and there are issues with China, and there are issues with the EU that are all impending issues to be dealt with. But the place we are right now is there are two forces contending against the reemergence of Iraq as a modern nation state. On the one hand, we have corrupt Iraqi officials that are, of course, embezzling from their own country, and they're sympathetic to Iran, being Shias themselves. There are the Iranian militias that have been roaming around in Iraq, but with the death of Qasem Soleimani, their activities have been severely curtailed, and the protesters are very clear about their expulsion from the country. And we also have their support from the Iranian mullahs, who have really put themselves in a bad place with their activities, not only in the last 3 months, but since the death of Soleimani. There are massive riots in every province of Iran, so the mullahs have their hands full just retaining power. which makes it extremely difficult for them to continue to interfere in Iraq and the internal affairs of other countries. On the other side, we have the UN that has threatened Iraq with putting them back in Chapter 7. We have the IMF that has threatened to leave Iraq in Article 14 for an undetermined length of time. We have the U.S. Treasury and the United States government that's not only threatening additional sanctions on Iraq itself, but has increased American forces in country. So while the Parliament did issue a non-binding resolution saying they wanted all troops out of the country, that was done for the consumption of the Shia and the hardline Iranians that are threatening them. In private, they all want the U.S. forces to remain because they understand that's the only stabilizing force. So as we speak, frankly, the good guys are in a much stronger position than the bad guys. So that's why the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar is still possible this month. But depending upon the complications with the budget, it could get pushed into March. But even if that's the case, we're still in a pretty good place, particularly those of us that have been holding currencies for over a decade. Now, what this does mean is those of you that have not as yet gotten your affairs in order or do not know what that would require prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. It's a two-phased program. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Pre-RV involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts with the assignment of your currencies on paper to that trust package. And post-RV involves all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. Now, there are a number of things individuals can do to provide some level of privacy and asset protection. For example, individuals can establish LLCs and sub-S corporations, and they do provide some level of asset protection. But the problem is LLCs and sub-S corporations generally separate high-risk business activities from personal assets, and these currencies are a personal asset. In addition, a number of courts have ruled that LLCs and sub-S corporations that are owned in the majority by one person or a closely held group are subject to being pierced in civil litigation. So the LLC and the sub-S corporation are not going to be appropriate asset protection vehicles. A lot of individuals have established something called a revocable trust. A revocable trust is designed to exempt your estate from the cost and delay of probate, and in some cases can substantially reduce and eliminate exposure to the federal estate tax. But revocable trusts, do not provide any privacy or asset protection, so they're going to be inappropriate for our needs. Now, there are individuals that have established irrevocable trusts, and they do provide privacy and asset protection. But a single irrevocable trust versus, say, a package like ours necessarily means that all of your assets are housed within one trust entity. So if any asset or activity within that trust entity is dragged into civil litigation, that would necessarily drag all of the assets into civil litigation because they're all owned by that same entity. The best single asset protection available domestically would be a package of irrevocable trusts, like the package that we've provided for our those individuals that have dinar and other currencies. And there are a number of reasons why you must establish this package prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies. First, by establishing this package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within our trust package are sealed, meaning that the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth and your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this trust package, you are going to be able to successfully avoid IRS scrutiny. If you are holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably going to be looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit would be time-consuming. It would certainly be frustrating if it came along at the precise time of the revaluation. And ironically, the cost of a 6-year audit would probably be more than the cost of our trust package. On the other hand, if your pre-RV trust package is in force and your currencies have been assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event of this revaluation from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for 2 reasons. First, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit if this revaluation of these currencies were to occur within your trust. But second, and most importantly, even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they cannot do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies prior to the revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the post-RV lump sum after you've negotiated the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, you can gift to them through our specially designed gift subtrust, which is part of our asset protection package. By gifting through this subtrust, their USD will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning you can gift to them the exact dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you're gifting to them through this subtrust, you will be able to manage, invest, control, and distribute this money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now this estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years, and in some cases, even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax. This is the tax that the federal government would assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Now, this scenario is not only unacceptable, it's completely and totally avoidable. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs that very same estate of $25 million, but this time protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there will be no probate. There will be no public disclosure of your estate. Your heirs will have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax will be zero, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. You transfer those currencies to our trust package. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. But second, and most importantly, once any prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000, the value of the currencies at the time you transferred them out of title to the trust, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's an asset protection benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets, and this is how it would work. Once again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by the master trust. This is the package approach. Now, how does this provide asset protection? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident, the accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important from an asset protection standpoint. All of your other assets are safely protected in the other subtrusts. Why? Because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So your trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss will be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your package of trusts prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar to be held in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust packages post-RV. Our tax specialists will be there to assist you with many of the complex tax strategies that you're going to need to be dealing with, many of you for the first time in your life. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. And you're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. And we certainly want to avoid that. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds at the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get money out of the banks and in other markets as quickly as possible. And third, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets, and you're going to want a substantial amount of your net worth invested in tangible assets in order to avoid that volatility. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust that will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV, your financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV, and manage your sub-trusts that will be funded post-RV. One optional gift sub-trust if you plan on gifting currencies and wish to control the post-RV proceeds, which sub-trust can be converted to a standard sub-trust along with the 8 additional standard sub-trusts to hold financial assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, there are a number of ways you can pay for this package. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the $3,000 cost to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's simply not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with this approach, anyone that has currencies and understands the need for getting their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. One other suggestion, we do accept credit cards. Pay us up front with a credit card. Not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your card would be substantially less than the $100 a month you would pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and your trust in place for all of the reasons that we've discussed here. Now, we will be going to a Q&A in a moment, but before we do, and again, for the benefit of our newer callers, I'd like to tell you a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider contacting us and getting our initial no-obligation package. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in this area. Now, Bob and I have been working together for about a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and, of course, with the currencies as well. And it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so, they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. Under our system of civil procedure, it's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them or lose them outright. And invariably it comes at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you're anticipating a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. So again, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to listen to this call. I am going to go to the Q&A in just a moment. I will be giving you our contact information, so I suggest you have a pen and paper handy. I strongly suggest if the things we've discussed here are of interest, you contact us. We'll be happy to send you our no-obligation initial package. If you should decide to proceed with a trust, everything is included in the package, but again, you're under no obligation. You can review the information. There's a lot of information about us, about trusts, about the evaluation itself. You can contact us if you have any questions, and there will be no consultation fee. Again, we want to make sure you have all of the information you need to make an informed decision prior to the evaluation for all of the reasons we've discussed here. I'm about to open the Q&A. 2 quick rules on the Q&A. We do not take service calls on the Q&A. Our existing clients can contact us by phone or email if they have questions. And for obvious reasons, your name and number must appear on the screen in order to participate. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trustsunlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trustsunlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD Calls and go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call with the exception of the last digit. Rather than dialing a 4, you'll dial a 3, and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you can go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution of the dinar, emails may go out as often as weekly. So let's go to the Q&A here. We have a caller, area code 314. That's 314. Go ahead.
This is Joel from Missouri.
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Are you still of the opinion that whenever this does all occur, it'll be a quick RV or whatever you want to call it, amount of money that the investment would be worth, or you think it's going to be like some still think it's going to start very slow and work its way up?
Okay. In my opinion, and again, this is only my opinion, there are two options. Either the currency will reinstitute, and then when the IMF takes it out of the program rate and revalues it globally, it will hit somewhere between $3 and $4. The other scenario is that it will initially hit at a rate globally similar to what the reinstitution rate is, somewhere around $1, but then quickly move to $3 to $4. I'm of the opinion it'll do the latter, but in either case, it should hit $3 to $4 rather quickly, in my opinion.
Okay. And that still stays the same even with everything that's been going on lately, huh?
Well, remember, the global rate, if to be Basel III compliant, would have to be between $3 and $4. So it's just a matter of how long it would take to get there.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you.
Because remember, the revaluation is number two. Number one is the reinstitution in country. So they're going to have to resolve the issues you're referring to in order to reinstitute. Then, the revaluation, again, will be based on its value against other currencies and Basel III compliance.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. All right. Our next caller is area code 312. That's 312. I'll take a wild guess. That's Les.
The one and only. Good afternoon, morning.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing all right. How are you doing today?
Can't complain. Can't complain at all. What's up?
I heard that. So, the deal signed with China, or the preliminary signing, is completed. Stocks are going up. This signing, I believe, gives China on the yuan side a retrieval of having, what's that currency? Currency manipulators, I guess they were titled, or they were on this list.
Well,
this removes them from it, correct?
Right. Well, the condition of phase. The phase one that was signed by both sides, the U.S. and China, deals with three things. One is the phase out of the trade deficit over time. Second, China has to resolve the issues with the theft of intellectual property. And third, that the World Trade Organization has been informed that China will be named as a currency manipulator if they do not stop the artificial undervaluing of their currency in order to quarter the international trade market. So once again, the agreement is sound. It's up to the Chinese to keep their end of the bargain. Now, as an example, what China does, China right now is involved in heavy negotiations with all countries, Iraq, for the purchase of their oil in exchange for assisting them with the rebuilding of their infrastructure. So the United States has done all the heavy lifting in Iraq. We've spent trillions to resurrect Iraq. We've lost over 4,000 American troops in Iraq. And what's China do? China tries to preempt us in terms of contracts to rebuild their infrastructure. So the Chinese are like a greased pig. It's just hard to get a hold of them. If they agree to one thing, it's because they're doing something else.
I like the example of greased pig.
Yeah.
All righty.
Right.
All righty.
So so that's part of the downside. But of course, it's still good news, and of course, the schedule for this meeting was released last week, which is why the Democrats were like panting dogs to get their impeachment done today, too, and try to get a hold of the news cycle.
Too late.
You know, I'm basically going to be selfish at this point and say, look, I don't care what's going on. I just want the damn dinar to reinstitute. I want to go to the bank. I want to do my exchange. I want to move on down the road.
I agree. I agree. Thanks for taking my call. Say hi to the professor, and good hearing you again.
Take care, Les. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Well, Les is our last caller for this afternoon. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to the call. If the things we discussed are of interest to you, I strongly suggest you contact us for our no-obligation initial package. You can review the package. If you have any questions, you can contact us. We'll be happy to assist you. There will be no consultation fee. If you should decide to proceed and establish your pre-RV trust package, everything you need is included in that initial package. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature should happen between now and then, and that's a distinct possibility this week, we will try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency call. Failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Thanks for listening, and have a great week, everyone. Bye-bye.